The story continues, but I just want to focus on that for now, because what you've just heard is the origin of Adam and Eve. So they eat that and they are kicked out of Eden. Now, I've said before that the serpent and eating that fruit is the introduction of thought and the option to choose wrong and to choose right, to choose the lower mind or to choose the higher mind. ENKIDU is at one with nature, and he has no idea that he is a part of the human species. Just as Adam and Eve were naked and had no idea that they were part of some sort of need to be embarrassed and so on and so forth. ENKIDU then, however, this is where the code begins, which is very important and exciting, because ENKIDU starts to take a bite from the tree, which is the harlot in this story, and he sleeps with her for 7 nights. Now, this represents the descent through your energy centers. The Kundalini is the ascension, the descent is the Kunda buffer. ENKIDU embraces his lower nature and he begins to travel down and down and down until eventually he has undone all of his energy centers and he has grounded himself in the lowest self, in the lower self, by sleeping with the harlot. Now all of you, me included, we all sleep with the prostitute regularly. You just don't meditate that day. You've slept with her one night. You just overeat that one time. You've slept with her again. You have angry thoughts. You sleep with her again. You have impure thoughts towards someone who is not with you, and you descend again. You indulge in an alcoholic beverage, far too many, and you get drunk. You've slept with the prostitute again. This is sleeping with the prostitute represents those actions where you start to descend down your energy centers.
Breath of wind up through the soles of my feet into my lungs you go. Meditation of an ancient kind.
Hi everyone. I've decided I will make a video based upon something that I feel was gifted to me by Spirit a little while ago. And I've been for some time hoping to find a way to start showing everybody that the code I speak about, which I have come to name the Christ code in my own life, and that is the code of not only the Bible but all other religious texts, that I could find a way to show not only that this code is there, but it's been used way before the Bible was around. Now the problem you have is, over the centuries, historically speaking, some of the greatest libraries of the world, like Alexandria, etc., were destroyed in war, and this has gone on and on and on. Even today, great Mesopotamian information and wisdom is destroyed by the wars that we carry out in what used to be Mesopotamia and is now Iraq and so on and so forth, this area of the world. However, there is a way to link the code in the Bible to the oldest stories on the planet, and I'm referring to between 2100 and 2500 BC, before Christ. And I'm not talking about the Vedas. I'm referring to Sumeria and Mesopotamia, which is mentioned in the Bible, of course. As I said a little while ago, I came out of meditation, I mean days ago, and I came out of meditation and I'd been in the forest. And as I walked up, everything was vivid. I was completely thoughtless. I was just plugged into the present moment. I was a continuance of the present moment, as we all were when we were born, before we had identity and the idea of what other was and self was. I was kind of in that place. Everything was just happening to me. I wasn't describing it. I had no labels. And from nowhere, a thought came up in my head, Gilgamesh. And I said, well, that is very peculiar in this state of silence, that this would come up, because I wasn't thinking anything. But I have for some time been meditating and praying on how I can show this code. And I have read a little on Gilgamesh in the past, but not enough. So I have done some pretty intense learning and study on the Epic of Gilgamesh. One of the oldest stories on the planet, once defined as the oldest story on the planet, or poem on the planet. Now, the story comes from Sumeria, and I want to show you the importance of understanding that this code, this ancient, wondrous code, is no different. It's something we need. Imagine today the government, when you were being born or growing up, they handed you a manual saying, welcome to Earth, so you're a human. These are the key important aspects that we have learned over the years and over the centuries. This is what you are. You're a vibrational being. This is how you control your mind. It's important you control it. Instead, we have the opposite. We have a system which confuses your mind with nonsense that you don't require. We have a carnal mind-based system. But all around us constantly there has been a welcome to Earth manual. Welcome to your human body manual. This is how you live a life of happiness, health and wealth. It's just the code has not been accessed because we've stopped trying to alter our states of consciousness, because we've stopped fasting. We've stopped praying. We've stopped meditating. We've started externalizing more and more and more instead of internalizing like our ancestors did. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, I will possibly make 2 videos today on this to split it up. But the Epic of Gilgamesh is a story of Gilgamesh, who was a very horrible person. He's very lustful, very egoic, and he's very domineering, and he's a king and he dominates his people completely. But he's the strongest person in the world, so he has the ability to do so. And the people pray that he is so horrible and he takes away people's wives and all of this stuff and their children. So the gods hear and the gods say, we need to make a man who can equal or rival him. So they do, and that man's name is ENKIDU. Now, ENKIDU lives at one in the mountains with the animals and in complete oneness with Mother Nature. He lives with the herds, he eats grass, he's a plant-based creature or plant-based human, and he is completely aligned and at one with that natural world. A hunter who is trapping animals notices in the story that his traps keep getting smashed and the animals released, and it's ENKIDU. And the hunter sees ENKIDU face to face at a watering hole, and out of fear he returns home and speaks to his father, and his father advises he goes to Gilgamesh and retrieves a prostitute and use the prostitute to seduce him. For once he is seduced, then he will understand the human world, because this man is clearly not of the civilized world, in accordance with these people who are hunting these innocent creatures up on the mountain and see him. When they return with the harlot, the prostitute, they tell her to strip naked and go to the drinking hole, and there she will seduce ENKIDU. And it works. When he sees her, he desires her and he takes her, and he makes love to her for 7 days and 7 nights. And the story says when he's had his fill, he decides to go back to his herds and start eating the grass and so on and so forth. However, when he returns to his animal friends, they run from him scared. They reject him because they see that he is no longer of the natural world. They see that something has changed in him. So he goes back to the harlot confused, and the harlot says to him, ENKIDU, do you not see that you are like God? Why would you want to spend time with the animals? Why would you want to spend time eating grass? Why not come to the city and enjoy the royal life, the royal foods? You are handsome like God, you are wise like God, so on and so forth. So indeed, Enkidu listens to the harlot because he's so confused, and she takes him to the city and they meet some shepherds, and the shepherds admire Enkidu, but what they do is they overrun him with image, shall we say, things of vanity, and he starts being groomed and putting clothes on, and he is presented food, and the food he is presented is bread and ale, alcohol, and he doesn't understand what it is, and they say, this is our custom, this is our food, have your fill. So he eats of the food, and as he eats the bread, he drinks 7 goblets of ale, and he becomes merry. The story continues, but I just want to focus on that for now, because what you've just heard is the origin of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve reside in Eden. Enkidu resides on the mountain. They are at one with nature, completely at one with nature. Unfortunately, Eve takes a bite of the forbidden tree. As she does, they are kicked out of Eden. Now, I've said before, Adam, I made a recent video, Adam, atom, Eve, electron. The Adam and Eve story conveys the beginning, the dawning, the origin of life, the splitting of the atom, the removal of the electron from the atom to start all life. I've done another video on that. But let's look at the other side, the side that's more focused upon. And the side that's more focused upon is always, nobody speaks about the fact that Adam and Eve is the splitting of an atom and an electron. Let's put it that way, but the other sides are all focused upon a lot. So they eat that and they are kicked out of Eden. Now, I've said before that the serpent and eating that fruit is the introduction of thought and the option to choose wrong and to choose right, to choose the lower mind or to choose the higher mind. Enkidu is at one with nature, and he has no idea that he is a part of the human species. Just as Adam and Eve were naked and had no idea that they were part of some sort of need to be embarrassed and so on and so forth. Enkidu then, however, this is where the code begins, which is very important and exciting, because Enkidu starts to take a bite from the tree, which is the harlot in this story, and he sleeps with her for 7 nights. Now, this represents the descent through your energy centers. The Kundalini is the ascension, the descent is the Kunda buffer. Enkidu embraces his lower nature and he begins to travel down and down and down until eventually he has undone all of his energy centers and he has grounded himself in the lowest self, in the lower self, by sleeping with the harlot. Now all of you, me included, we all sleep with the prostitute regularly. You just don't meditate that day. You've slept with her one night. You just overeat that one time. You've slept with her again. You have angry thoughts. You sleep with her again. You have impure thoughts towards someone who is not with you, and you descend again. You indulge in an alcoholic beverage, far too many, and you get drunk. You've slept with the prostitute again. This is sleeping with the prostitute represents those actions where you start to descend down your energy centers, the downward spiral of the Christ energy instead of the upward spiral of the Christ energy, which is defined by the 2 intertwining serpents in the Vedic tradition, but in the Christian tradition is defined as the bronze serpent upon Moses' staff. So you must climb. The bronze serpent must hold up to save you. You don't want the descending serpent that bites people and injures them. That's the story of Moses. So we all sleep with this prostitute. We all do it. Now, after that, the animals, the natural world is not part of him. And that's because his carnal mind has been introduced. He's gone into the lower mind. And we see it. At the world around us, we look at the animals and they are plugged into the present moment. and they are very much at peace, and they have boundless energy. Yesterday I was watching birds here swooping up into the wind and travelling back down just for fun. In the Gilgamesh epic, after Enkidu has slept with the harlot, he tries to run, but he feels heavy and it's difficult for him to do so. And this is humans still today. If you set off on a long journey somewhere, there are those human beings among us who still haven't sussed out that they should not think of the destination. They'll walk, and because they're thinking how far the destination is, they're not in the present moment, their mind is always disturbing them. It's difficult for them to even take the next step. That's why people don't exercise, because their mind tells them it's a task and it's difficult. The carnal mind is not subject to the laws of God, remember. And Enkidu introduced the carnal mind. Eve bit the fruit and she introduced the carnal mind. It's the introduction of thought in the human mind, the development of the carnal mind within us. Enkidu then goes to be with the harlot, who tells him she is like God, just as the snake told them that you will be as God. Then he heads off and he meets the shepherds, and again he has risen his energy. He's come back to his natural state because he rejects that which is man-made. He sees the bread and he says, I don't know food like this. I eat grass, I eat natural stuff, I eat plants. What's this? I don't know what that is. And they say, eat it, it's fine. And of course he eats it, and he eats of that which is the carnal mind, which is made by man and not made by God. And he begins the descent of the Kunda Buffer, the 7 goblets of ale. And he descends, again, his energy into the lower self. I just want to add this in the story of Enkidu as well. When he's eating the bread and drinking the ale, he begins this journey of vanity. But vanity is not an unusual concept that's put into those who know the esoteric codes. And one of the more modern persons who have managed to get worldwide recognition without anyone realizing that they were giving you the code to happiness, health, and wealth and joy within your life are the Brothers Grimm. So in the story, or the epic of Snow White, which is what it is as well, in the story of Snow White, she gets lost in the wilderness, in the woods, and she meets the 7 dwarfs. Finally, after being lost inside her thoughts, she finds union of the 7 energy centers, just as Moses was lost in the wilderness and found the 7 sisters. But at that point, when the 7 promise to look after her, she is tempted by vanity. And this is exactly what's happening to Enkidu. They are pulling him away using vanity. Things that we see as culturally, socially normal appearance, and we're all guilty of it. This is vanity. And the vanity is of the carnal mind, and the carnal mind is not subject to the laws of God. So, both Enkidu and Snow White were tempted away from their state of perfection with God by the lower aspects of themselves, which came in the form of vanity. This is the origin, the very first recorded stories on the planet, literally the origin of the code that is still in the Bible, because the persons who wrote it were still connected to the same cultures. Now, inside the Bible, I've said that Samson and the lion depict Samson wrestling the lower nature. And in the Gospel of Thomas, which is excluded from the Bible, Jesus says, "Blessed is the man who consumes the lion, for the lion will surely become man. But cursed is the man that the lion consumes, for the man will become the lion. Blessed is he who overcomes the lower mind, because the lower mind will become his higher self and will disappear. Cursed is he who the lower mind overcomes, because the lower mind will create great trouble for you." In the Epic of Gilgamesh, there is a point where they say, "You loved the lion in all of its strength, but you defeated him, and you dug him a pit 7 lengths of 7. You threw him into a pit, or you dug him a pit, I think, of 7 lengths of 7. That's the same code, except it's included the energy centers. You have overcome the lion, you loved your ego, you loved the carnal mind, you loved the pleasures of the flesh, but you overcame it, and you tossed it away because you rose up through your 7 energy centers and you activated your pineal and you saw God face to face in the place you call pineal, as Jacob said in the Bible. You throw your lower nature into that pit because you overcome it. You break the seals by the Christ within you, and there with the book sealed up the back with 7 seals at the right hand of him. You raise your energy through the 7 energy centers, you push the internal Christ of yourself up through your 7 energy centers, and you throw open the right hemisphere of your brain at the right hand of God, at the right hand of him. In the story of Gilgamesh, you throw the lion into the pit 7 lengths of 7. Not only that, but there's another part with the war horse, and you loved the war horse. Again, it's representing the lower nature of yourself. And it says, but you subjected the war horse to a life of spur and lash, meaning you have beaten, you have overcome this war horse. And it says you subject it to a life of a 7 furlong gallop, and for it to drink muddy water forevermore. You overcome the lower nature, the 7 furlong gallop, by raising your energies through the 7 energy centers, and you force your lower mind into a position. It's very clear what the concept of drinking muddy water forevermore means, where the lower mind has no ability to be over the top of you and is in a state of servitude towards you. Now, also inside the Epic of Gilgamesh, the lion is referenced, where it says, I have beaten lions in the mountain passes. Now the mountain inside the Christian mystic code, or the Sumerian mystic code, where its origins comes from, or simply the language of mysticism, which is a simple language to begin to, it's not that simple, but it's a language that we can learn. A mountain is always a higher place, so in the higher places of consciousness, you have slain the lion. Then it goes on to say, I have beaten the bull of heaven. The bull was also used to represent the lower nature. We see this in the Greek myth of the Minotaur, where you get lost in the maze with the Minotaur, in the maze of your own mind, and you're being chased down by your ego. And there's also a demon that lives in the cedar forest. Humbaba is the name of the demon. And cedar trees are notoriously tall, high places. The bull came from heaven, high places. Gilgamesh physically fights the bull inside the story, but I'll put that in my next my next video. So all high places, they overcome the lower self. So not only is it very clear that the origin of the theme of Adam and Eve, the creation story, the fall of man, is what was used in Sumerian texts 2100 BC, so 2500 years before the Bible was written. But not only that, but it contains the same code of awakening, of overcoming the lower nature, the same code that the world so desperately needs. For as I've said, all over the world, some people can do it. Some people can be loving and caring, but others give their life over to things like Jesus or to Allah, even to Buddha or to Krishna. And their flesh still beats them because they never overcome it. They never put the lion down. They're constantly sleeping with the harlot. They're constantly taking a goblet of ale, and they're constantly descending through their energy centers. So there is much more on the Epic of Gilgamesh, but let this be my first video, and I'm going to record another one now about the Epic of Gilgamesh and some of the other codes and other origins of Bible stories which clearly came from these Sumerian stories that were passed down. So wherever they came from, who knows? But ultimately, you can't deny that the story of ENKIDU is the story of Adam and Eve with different characters. And this is hugely important, because regardless of anything that is going, as I've said, the Bible tells you these things are an allegory. So we have to start looking at things and saying, why is the allegory there? What's the deep truth God wants to give to me through this? Through this book that is in nearly every home and hotel room in the world. What does God want to give me? And I think that's desperately important. Desperately important. I know that with this Christ code, I can guarantee my son will be happy. Up until this day, we have not been able to guarantee our children will be happy. We think if we get rich, they'll be happy. They're not. We think if we do this, buy them this, they'll be happy. They're not. But I'll teach my son how to use his brain. I'll give him my Welcome to Earth manual. How to use your body. How to ensure that your emotions don't override you. How to ensure you can have a silent mind and tune into the world of God instead of tuning into the carnal mind, which is not subject to the laws of God. And you do that by ensuring that you do not spend nights with the harlot and send that kunda buffer down. You send it up, and you reject the man-made bread, and you eat the grass with the animals of the plain. In other words, you live without a carnal mind as much as possible, and you find union and oneness with Mother, Father, Creator when you do. Or, I've been saying Mother, Father, Creator, but somebody asked the other day, how can I say that? Well, Mother, Father, Creator is another way of saying Elohim, which is the original name given to God within the Bible. So, okay, I'll make another one now about Noah. God bless, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here. Be it sharing for a particular need or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.